And I'm looking at this poor little girl, tears just streaming down her face. And I'm like, I got like mad.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like,
I've
God,
been there.
it was like, God, how dare you? But with this one, it was weird. It was almost like I took the opposite approach where I wanted to just film with my friends, but it wasn't about, I can't wait for the world to see them. It was, I can't wait for the world to see Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Because he'd become, over 15 years, he'd become my best friend.
Welcome to Radical Radio with Robby Dawkins. Robby is a renowned speaker and equipper in over 70 countries, as well as author of international best-selling book, Do What Jesus Did. Here's your host, Robby Dawkins.
Hey, I'm Robby Dawkins, and this is Radical Radio, and it is time to get radical. If you're not, get there, because we want to get you there, and that's part of this program is to get you there. If you saw a couple of weeks back, I had my good friend Darren Wilson on the program. It was a great podcast. You got to catch it if you didn't. And we're especially glad because literally this coming Tuesday, June 6th, The God-Man is in theaters all across the nation in the United States. We've been having people send messages. Is it going to be playing in Canada? Is it playing here in Mexico? Is it playing? We're getting messages like that. It's in the United States. I don't know of outside of that.
It's not outside. It's just US.
Inside the United States. And so, but get your friends there, be a part of this. And it is going to be, it's epic. It truly is an epic film. Honestly, bro, it's your best film.
Thank you.
Like seriously, the best film. And I'm not saying that because you're just sitting here.
And it needs to be seen on a big screen.
It's so true, so true. Because you're experiencing it. This is an encounter film. You are encountering Jesus in this film.
Yeah.
And so you gotta be a part of it. Before we go too far, because of that, like this program, share this program, and make sure, and if you want to help us continue Keep Radical Radio out there, go to robbydawkins.com and partner. We should have a link in the description. You can hit that and support this program. But Darren, I'm literally, I said it a couple of weeks ago, I tear up every time I see the film. And every time, it's just, I can't not.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because we showed it at Bethel over a month ago. And I got up and I said, who else here watching this feels this way? And Bill Johnson shoots his hand up right away, and so did 3/4 of the audience there.
Yeah,
and I think Bethel seats around 1,200 people.
There's about 800 people.
We had about eight. I was going to
seats like 850.
I think it was about 9, but yeah, it was. And so I would say, you had probably 600 people there that I saw responding, going, yeah, that's how it's affecting me. And so we don't want it to be, meaning you, don't want it to be a movie that you just take a bunch of Christian film friends to, but that you actually bring some people that are, and you said something in the last program I want to highlight for everybody again, buy a bunch of tickets, keep them with you, keep them in your vehicle, keep them in your purse, whatever you travel with, and just be ready to give them to whoever the Holy Spirit prompts you to. Yeah. Because it's that kind of film. And I mean, it really, really is. And so, yeah, but on this, is there anything more that you want to say about it before it?
No, I mean, just,
what's the website again? Sorry.
It's fathomevents.com.
Yes.
You can go there, just search for the God-Man, and then it'll pop up, and then you can just type in your zip code and it'll show you which theaters are playing it near you, and then you can actually buy the tickets right there. Man,
you got to do it. It's just so good. And you've been since 2007. You've been making these films, and with every one of them, they just have their own story. They have their own, I've heard some people say, they're kind of very similar, very all the same. And I'm sitting there going, no, everyone I see, they're very different. Yeah. They each have a different, I don't know, just if there's a different aspect of God you're seeing, a different perspective, maybe of the 3 persons of the Godhead, you're sort of highlighting each one, but they're different. And
yeah, I think what people are talking about there, it's kind of become its own genre, and so so like you can say,
you
like,
really
well,
set a genre in doing
this. Yeah,
this.
it kind of created a brand new one. And that's one of the
I don't think anybody was doing it before.
No,
I didn't see
who was
anything
the
like
guy?
that.
There was a guy. Oh man, I filmed him for my second movie. He was doing something sort of similar, but it was very like they were half-hour.
George Otis Jr.
George Otis Jr. Yeah,
Yeah.
What were those things called?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So he was doing that stuff, but it was like he would go in and and he would look at like one thing that happened in this village. And it'd be like a half-hour episode, and it's just on one thing that happened, in the past. And so they're kind of getting like the story of it.
It was kind of a revival event type of thing.
Yeah, but it was all like other people. It was people like kind of recounting something. Whereas with these films, I think they're the first ones where we actually are trying to actually capture God doing God things in real time. Yeah, and that I think was what really changed the game for.
Because in his films, it was really focusing on everything that was of what had taken place and kind of reporting on it.
Yes,
which is sort of true documentary style, but you're documenting it as it's happening right in front of you.
Yeah,
and it was and which is very risky. And more risky.
It doesn't get much riskier.
You've got
as a filmmaker.
Yeah, you got to be like, I'm really hoping God shows up for this because we're here to capture it, and this is what you told us to do. And I just
spent tens of thousands of dollars to get here, and I'd like that to not be for nothing.
Has there ever been in any one of them something that you were expecting that either got rerouted or maybe disappointment? Or where all of a sudden you were like, because I mean, with people, you may hear things about them, and then you get there and you're like, this wasn't who I thought they were, or I thought it was this or that. I don't have a particular direction I'm trying to take this question.
No,
but
I have. I know there's one in particular, and you were a part of it. It was Siberia. Remember? Okay. Do you remember we went to Siberia?
Oh, yeah.
And for Father of Lights,
that's
and
right.
Nothing happened. Like, we got some really cool testimonies, but even those are pretty flat. And so I actually created a whole, like, the opening for Father of Lights was this whole 15-minute sequence about Siberia that I had just cut the whole thing because it just didn't have the juice. Yeah. And but I just remember, like, this is weird. I filmed with Robby a number of times. Like, I've never seen this before, where it's like people didn't want you to pray for them, and if you did, nothing happened. Yeah, and even you were like, right. I don't know what's going on, man. That's
true.
So that was that's probably the only one where I went and I was like, that was strange.
And I think it was really interesting because my experience there was with going and just ministering there or equipping people there was extremely positive. Like, we'd seen a lot of stuff happen, and so it was. I was like, for sure, you're definitely going to see this and this.
Yeah.
And these incredible things are gonna take place, but it was reflective. Like, every story was for back then, which is really kind of what like those other movies were like. Yeah. And so they weren't in the moment.
Yeah.
And
that was the first shoot for Father of Lights. So after that, I was like a little nervous. I'm like, uh-oh.
I bet.
What's about to happen with this movie? Am I supposed to be making this thing?
I remember that, and I remember thinking later too, like, thank God all the gang members came to Christ because when we were filming in Aurora with the Latin Kings, I was like, oh, thank you, Lord. And of course we didn't know what would happen there at all. Yeah. And with that one, it's interesting because there was nothing reflective. Mm-hmm. We were in a war at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, they were threatening a war, which, by the way, I hit it on the first chapter of my book, And Do What Jesus Did, never happened because that scene captured it.
It shifted what was happening.
And it was really weird, because it was so, like, setting up that meeting to happen. I had tried for 2 years to get a meeting with those guys and just got shot down every time. They didn't trust me. They were, all these, everything happened. And it just so happened for that, they said yes. And I was shocked. I didn't.
With cameras.
Yeah. And we had cameras. They're mic'd, And it was so crazy. But yeah, so with it, that's really good to hear, that you actually, I mean, I knew that because I was a part of that. I forgot about that, but to where that you have a goal and objective and it just doesn't happen. So, you clearly have to have that sense of God to go, yeah, I got to pull this.
Yeah.
It's not there. But hey, we gave it a shot and spent a ton of money doing it. Siberia is not an easy place to get to. And so, but any others where there were like things where, and it doesn't, hey, we're taking a break right now. And I want to encourage you to come and join us August 2nd through the 5th. We are doing an ACTS school right here in the United States. Our ACTS schools is usually Arab Kingdom training schools, but this one, August 2nd through the 5th, is going to be the American Kingdom training schools. My dear friend Andrew Cannon, coming from the UK, is going to join us, and he and I both have been a part of equipping underground churches in dangerous countries throughout the world. Well, we're going to be training you in the power gifts of healing, prophetic deliverance, ministry of manifest presence, sending you out to the streets to bring people that life-forming transformation and encounter with Jesus Christ. You don't want to miss it. Go to AKTS.global now, sign up, and we'll see you there. Now back to Radical Radio.
Not really places that I shot. I mean, I was, we've been talking kind of off camera about how many times I had to start and stop this movie, The God Man. What we wound up with was the third try. Because why was that? What was going on? So what happened is, first time, it basically was just financing would fall through. So we thought we had people who were going to give, and then they backed out at the last minute. And it's just the timing, my company went almost under during the second one. So I had to kind of stop that and focus more on the TV stuff. So it was just all these start and stops I've been trying to make this movie for close to 7 years now.
Yeah.
And it took 3 years to make because of COVID. But so it's interesting. I wanted to bring this up to you because I have a question for you as a prophetic expert.
Go for it. Expert. Ooh, no pressure there.
No, but I think, one thing, the first time I started to really figure out or I thought what this movie was going to be, I was doing an interview and I knew I was going to make a movie called The God Man. I knew it was going to be about Jesus. I just didn't know anywhere where I was going to go or anything like that. And so I was doing an interview for, I think it was Charisma or Christianity Today. It was one of those two. And the lady had come and she was just doing an article on me. And she was in my studio at the time up in Chicago. And she's just asking me just questions and you're just kind of normal. I'm just giving all the canned answers that I usually give. And all of a sudden she stops. She puts down her pad and paper and she says, "So, have you gone to the four corners of the earth yet?" And I'm like, "What?" like it was just out of the blue. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, "Have you gone to the four corners of the earth?" And I'm like, I don't, why are you asking me that? And she goes, and then she it's almost like she snapped out of it. And she goes, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know why I just asked you that.
Wow.
It's not on my list. It just hit me and I asked you. And I'm like, not yet. Right. So then I'm like, it's about maybe a couple of months later, I was at Bethel for some event. And I remember I was just during worship, a woman is right in front of me. She turns around and she says, "Have you gone to the four corners of the earth?" And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Right. Yeah. This is crazy. How are these people asking me the same question? So that really started kind of the initial thing where I think I'm supposed to go film in the four corners of the earth. And so originally that meant I was going to go to the northernmost city in the world, which is in Norway, southernmost city in the world, which is in Chile. And then I was going to go where east meets west, which is Fiji.
Okay.
That's actually that date line or whatever goes right through it. And so that was the original concept. And so then that fell through. So then a couple years later, we're trying for, number two. So, and I still have this four corners of the earth thing because I'm pretty sure God told me this, right? So, but then I took a retreat and I was trying to listen to the Lord, where do you want me to go with this thing? And so I just got this sense of maybe because I think I was looking up even the word like the four corners of the earth, and I was just like, what does this mean? And it basically turned into the four extremes of the earth. So it was basically going to go to like a barren place. And so for me, that was like, I was thinking Alaska. And then I was going to go to Haiti, which is like one of the poorest places. And then we're going to go to Tokyo, which was the most people, it's the biggest city in the world. And it's also one of the most unsaved,
Christless places.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And then Fiji, which is, one of the I was still stuck on that because it was still like the most beautiful place. And I felt like the Lord was saying, there's somebody in this beautiful place that is living in hell, and I want you to come drag them out. So okay, we start that, and then it all falls through again, right? And so then, like when I finally I was able to like raise money on Indiegogo to make this version of the God Man, and I just kind of scrapped everything, and I was like, Lord, I don't even know if these are words from 5 years ago. Like, just tell me what to do. And so that's when I was, in the movie I mentioned like Alaska is just the first place I prayed about because that was on my original list. I'm like, do you want me to go? And that's when I looked at a map, saw this town called Hope, and just something sparked in me. And, what you see in the movie there. So my question is, I am positive that those words were from the Lord. Because that's too weird, right?
Yeah,
that's
right.
Too like. So what happened? So why? You know what I mean? Like, like it's really, it's an honest question that I'm still struggling with. Did God change his mind, or is it circumstances changed, or just so much time had passed that like what we originally were going to do, but the Lord also knew that we were going to get flame out 2 times as well. Right. And so it's like, I don't know what's going on. And so that's for me, I think it also keeps me on my toes because it's like, I'm never going to say like, thus saith the Lord, because I don't know. You know what I mean?
I don't want that responsibility.
Like, I think I'm hearing from him. I think. And, I always kind of joke about it, but I'm actually dead serious. I have no idea if I'm actually hearing from God for the decisions that I make, or if it's just, I think I heard from him. It's not what he said, but you know what? This kid's stepping out in faith. He's stepping out in trust. I'm going to back him up anyway.
I'm going to meet him there.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, and either way, I don't care. It's God's being faithful. But I don't know. I just was curious of your take on that. Like, especially like, because I'm assuming there's a lot of people who are watching this who have similar experiences of like, there's a prophetic word, it's from God, but then like, it just didn't happen.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked it. I hope I got a good answer for it. I didn't know you were going to ask it, so I don't know. I really feel like that the Lord is, my experience has been that, so many times I'll get a sense of this is where he's going, or this is the direction that he's going in. And then I'll find out that, oh no, it was over here, or it was this, I remember doing we were doing a training on treasure hunt, book that Kevin Dedman wrote, and in Ukraine years, I think a decade ago, and a guy, several people prayed. They saw this same picture: a guy with a yellow shirt holding a dog leash with his hand on a tree, smoking a cigarette. And so in the way the book works is you're looking for the X that marks the spot, and all these things add up to this person. And then that's your God appointment. And we find that guy in a park, hand on a tree, cigarette in the hand, holding the leash in the other hand, yellow shirt to the T.
Wow.
But the word was damaged right knee and severe knee pain. Walked up. Hey, you got a bad knee? Got knee pain? Look, showed the paper. This is what we saw. Clearly, you're that guy. And do you have a bad knee? No, my knees are fine. F off. Get the heck out of here. I don't want to even talk to you people. Starts cursing us out. Didn't seem to have great English until he started cussing at us. Yeah,
right.
And then and we're like, oh man, how could this be so wrong? How did it be so off? And then a woman sitting on the bench near him goes, well, I just am supposed to have knee surgery this coming Wednesday, and I have very bad knees, severe damage in the knees, and we're like, oh, and so it was almost like he was the X on the map, but It was really her.
Yeah.
And there's those types of situations, but then there's also things where I think it's, maybe the four corners aren't in one movie, maybe it's multiple, maybe there's more. I mean, I know you have more in your destiny. There's more that the Lord has for you to do. And so I literally think, but I'll tell you this much for sure. I have come to the conclusion when you think you got God figured out, you don't.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm always a little nervous to put periods, and I want to use commas instead of periods because it feels like the story's going to continue.
Yeah.
And so that is for sure. And so many situations I've had in situations where I know, man, I heard from the Lord on this, but then it would turn out that it would reroute or it'd be completely, somebody totally different.
Yeah, and even while you're saying this, I'm just processing the question that I asked you, and I just thought of something I hadn't thought of before. Is I never would have gone to Alaska had I not gotten that.
Yeah, there you go.
Because it definitely got rerouted, but like Alaska was our first shoot for the film,
right.
And it kind of was like the spark plug to kind of create. That's when I started to realize, okay, this is the kind of movie I want to make. I want to make it more like this and less like the past few.
Well, the whole movie, I mean, people who see, I mean, we were talking about a guy who saw part of it and was like, yeah, I got the gist. You don't get the gist. You got to watch the entire thing because and I don't want to give it away, but I mentioned it in the last segment that we did, literally the final piece, the final, half hour of the movie is unpacking, or 15 minutes even, is unpacking this map of how God was arranging and how God is putting these things together.
Yeah, and everything very much builds on each other.
Yeah.
And then you get to the end and then it's just an explosion.
The Lord spoke something to me years ago. I was like, God, show me what I'm going to be doing 10 years from now. Just show me so I know where I'm going. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the Lord spoke back to me and he said, if I did that, you get ahead of me. And I'm not ready for you to get there yet. I got a bunch of classrooms in between here and there of where you're going 10 years from now. And the biggest part of this pursuit of God is learning to lean into him and depend on him. And he's like, that's the reason why that scripture says you only know in part.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what God spoke to me. And he goes, I'm not going to show you because you'll get ahead.
Yeah.
And you'll move from here to there. And I got a lot of classrooms in between. I got a lot of stuff for you to learn in that journey.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a part of it.
Yeah. It's similar for me. People always ask me, like, how do you know even like where to go and all this other stuff? And the best way I can describe it, because again, I'm a visual person. So like the best visual that I can give you is it's like I'm staring into a fog and I can see there's like little posts that I know I'm supposed to head in that direction, but I don't know what's there. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And then sometimes you just run into a post and it's like, oh, this isn't where I'm supposed to go. But it's kind of like, it's literally trying to work my way through a fog is the best way I can describe it. And then it's and I know you've talked about this before, is like, especially when you step out like in the prophetic or whatever, you don't even know what is about to come out of your mouth.
No idea.
And you just kind of have to take that step. And it's like in that moment, and it's the same thing with how making these movies. It's like you just go and you just, it was funny. My dad was dropping me off at the airport the other day, and he's dad. And he's just like, I'm really proud of you and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's 6 a.m, Dad. Let me drink my coffee, right? He's like, I just don't know how you do what you do. Like, I don't know how you go, like, you go to these places and you don't even know why you're going or what you're going for. He's like, I just think it's crazy, but it's amazing. And it's the first time I thought about it for a while. Like, I guess that is kind of different. That is kind of, you know what I mean? But for me, it's just become so, and I'm assuming feels the same for you. It's never like not scary.
No, yeah, you feel the fear.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like you've done it so much.
Yeah.
And you've seen how God is always faithful, always. Yeah. And you just do it now. It's just kind of, well, this is what I do. This is what friendship and partnership with God looks like. And so it's, it doesn't take away the fear totally, but it definitely lessens it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, for sure. I've always had, I've really been jealous of you because you I've always been like, okay, Lord, is Darren your favorite? Why is he getting why is he getting so many clues? Why is he getting so many? Because sort of we operate a bit differently in that sort of thing. I'm almost like, God, if you don't want me to go, stop me. I grew up in Bible college. I had all these friends who, I swear to you, 30 years ago, they were in a circle praying, Lord, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? I bet you, Darren, they're still there at that circle praying, Lord, what do you want us to do? Yeah. And I'm like, wasn't it pretty clear? Heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons, preach the good news everywhere you go. What else do we need? Let's just do that, And part of it, and I'm not trying to be hard on them. I know what they're saying. They're like, Lord, if you have a particular task, tell us so we can get there. Yeah. I get it. But I've never been just patient enough to wait around for that. Sort of the bull in the china closet. It was a little bit more of my sort of approach. And I've literally said multiple times, God, if you don't want me to go, stop me. Otherwise I'm going. And even my last trip to Afghanistan, which a lot of people, especially on here, they've heard me reference it many times, was, got arrested, was held for 3 days. It was, torture involved, all this stuff, threats of killing, all these things that were behind it. And even I had 9 prophetic words before I went that I would die if I went, that the Taliban would kill me if I went. Wow. Or the Taliban or the military, I think is the word say. My pastor's wife saw me coming back in a coffin. Jeez. Like literally 9 words. But I'm sitting here thinking from this perspective, I'm hearing these words, but I'm not hearing the Lord say, don't go.
Yeah.
I'm not one time. And I'm like, I tell everybody, I'm like, my staff is sitting there begging me, please don't go. Like, we have a bad feeling on this one. This is dangerous. And I'm like, only if my flight cancels.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a sign not to go. Otherwise, I'm on that plane.
The same thing happened to Paul, right?
But that's the point.
Like, everybody's don't go.
If you go to Jerusalem, you'll be killed. And
he's
what
like,
does he
I gotta
do?
go.
Goes to Jerusalem. Yeah. And I think that's the whole thing, is that we do have this realization we're following the Lord, and God's in pursuit of every human being in all the world. How can we miss in any of that? Yeah, clearly, Siberia didn't get what we expected, but yet there is that point of you really are chasing God. Yeah. You really are, in hot pursuit and going after him. And so, it's the only thing that I can conclude. I always know that even if I misstep, I'm always telling the Lord, look, I'm not the Jonah. I'm not fighting you on going. I'm ready to do it. I'm not, and people always say, well, you're just fearless. That's not true.
Right.
I feel fear. I feel terror, every time. I'm just not going to let it be Lord. Right. Fear's not going to be Lord. Yeah. It's going to be there. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to reject it. It's going to be a battle, but it will not be Lord.
Yeah, it's interesting. And maybe it's just a difference in our personalities, where you say that, God, you have to stop me if you don't want me to go. Whereas how I approach it is always, God, only give me one option.
That's great.
It's
Yeah.
like, because if you give me 2, I'm gonna choose the wrong one. If you leave it up to me, I'm inevitably going to choose the easy one, or the one that the nicer place or whatever. I'm just give me one.
Did you go to Fiji yet?
No, we went to Roatan instead. So no, it's and so for me, it's always just open one door.
Yeah.
And I'll walk through it. I'll walk through it. I just don't make me make the decision.
Right.
So that's kind of like, and I think it's a little different too, because with you, you're going to minister, right? And with me, it's like there's for a film, and there's so much planning involved, and there's so many moving parts that you really have to be like, you really need to know that the Lord is sending you here. Yeah. Otherwise it could bankrupt you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's, I think he's just been really merciful with me, because I don't know if I'm a good hearer of him. I don't know.
I think you're
but I know,
prove you are.
But I know, like with the God man, the vast majority of the way he spoke to me in this one, Where to Go, was through dreams, which has never really happened before. It was always for like Holy Ghost. It was like impressions that I had, or prophetic words that I was receiving, or, things would happen out of the blue. Whereas this one, it was like, 2 major places that we went were both, highlighted through dreams.
Right.
And one of them, Roatan, which I'm not going to tell the story, you'll have to see the movie, but I mean, he gave me for the first time in my life a dream where he told me exactly where to go. I've never gotten that. Like, you go to this place.
Wow.
And it was great, because we had there's a lot of warfare to get there. I mean, it was again, 3 tries before we actually wound up. And I would, if I wouldn't have had the dream, I would have cut bait and I'm like, this isn't of God. Like, he doesn't want us to go here.
Right.
But I had this very vivid dream. I knew he wanted us to go there. So that's why we just kept with it. And actually that delay, as you see in the movie, was actually a key part of the story that was going to happen there.
It was just God weaving everything together. It's almost like, even though you think something may get lost, and this is always something I have to remind myself, God is redemptive.
Yeah.
People are always asking this question, did God make me go through this bad circumstance? Did God have me be molested by my father in order for, and I'm like, no, God certainly didn't want you to do that. He certainly didn't want that to happen, but God's a redemptive God. He likes redeeming things.
Yeah.
He doesn't make bad things happen to you because he wants that to happen. He doesn't make them happen to you. He's trying to save you from all those things, but yet he likes redeeming them. And I think sometimes they're in the realm of the redemptive power of God, that he's just redeeming, something. He's turning something around.
Yeah. And I think I wrote about this. I think it was my second book. That exact question, because I think where things get screwed up in our theology is when we think like just that, like, did God, kill my mom? Give her cancer so that somebody in our family could get saved because of whatever reaction they had or something like. Did God do a bad thing to bring glory to himself? Right. And, as I really wrestled with this, I kind of started to realize, like, God obviously is love, and he would like a loving God would never like do that. But he does, like you said, he will take bad things and turn them for good. Right. And I think the problem, though, is when we get our theology screwed up and we think that what God is doing, God is reacting to the world as it's operating around us. But we just think he's controlling everything. He's making it happen to get his way, and it gets really twisted.
Yeah.
And it's like, and we just have to remember, like, bad things are going to happen to you because like the devil is real. Right. And like people are evil and people make really, really bad decisions.
Yeah.
And there are consequences to decisions, but then God steps into those consequences and he'll do whatever he needs to do to bring something good out of it. And I think you go down a dangerous path when you start to say, well, then God orchestrated all of it just to get his way.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's not how it works.
One of your subjects in your film that really always, in their writings at least, speak to that and have helped me, and I wouldn't have known him if you hadn't put him in the film, was Greg Boyd.
Yeah, he's
so I mean, of course, God at War, incredible book, but one of them that really helped me out, I think it was when we were doing the Furious Love event in Michigan, was I bought one of his book, Is God to Blame? And he hits on that subject hard. Yeah. And really, man, it was so eye-opening for me. And at the time, I was really, that particular year, I was pastoring in the hood in Aurora, Illinois. And I think we had 6 people commit suicide in our church that year. And I was just like, man, I was so down, so discouraged. These are people that I baptized. These are people out of the 6, 4 of them, I personally had led to Christ. And was just like, what is going on? I mean, we would reference that as the year of death because it was just so discouraging and sad and heartbreaking. And that book really helped me understand that, no, this isn't God being, to blame, but that it's actually God trying to intervene, trying to stop, trying to, and yet we very much, if free will is a reality, right, which he's put into place, and then he's going to honor it. Yep. And if we choose not to follow him, that's our choice. Yeah. And that's a lot of things that I think the atheists that have really struggled with this thing with faith and all of that is that they want to blame God, for just bad decisions that we make, bad choices we make, circumstances where we're in. And that's one of the things that really is a theme. I've always noticed throughout your films, you're always highlighting somebody choosing to go who's not in a place where their ministering is particularly their lifestyle or what they grew up with, but they're choosing to go to the least of these.
Yeah.
They're choosing to go to that place where they're forgotten or abandoned or the most rejected.
Yeah.
And that's really something that's powerfully hit me through every one of your films is that you're fun. And I'm of course I'm assuming it's the Holy Spirit navigating you, but it's obviously something too in your heart of going, wow, these people are really remarkable because they're really giving all of it up. And that, of course, it's been hugely inspirational to me with working in some of the parts of the world I work in because they are hated and rejected and, but yet these beautiful lives that God's in hot pursuit of and relentlessly pursuing. But in all of that, it's really touched me and stirred me, to see you capturing that and going after it. It feels intentional.
Yeah, it is. That's what Jesus did, right? It's like if we're trying to represent him, it's like, I heard a pastor once. I have no idea if this is true, but he said he did a lot of research and figured this out. But so I'll take it with a grain of salt. But he said, where Jesus spent a lot of time in Bethany, and apparently a lot of scholars believe that Bethany was actually kind of like a leper colony. So like it was kind of, I think it's because when he met the 10 lepers, it was like in Bethany or outside of Bethany. So it's like it's kind of was the place of like rejects. Wow. And Jesus Scripture talks about him. He's staying there. He's staying with Lazarus. Like I think a lot of people think Lazarus was actually a leper.
Wow.
So, but it's like that, if that's true, how Jesus is that, right? He's going to go to the place that, they literally create a place to like, you go over there because we don't want to deal with you. We don't want to see you. And Jesus is like, I'm going to go hang out with these guys. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to, make my bed here for a little bit. It's like, this is old Jesus.
It's something I always tell people. I'm like, if you want to see God show up and do these kinds of things, you've got to put yourself in risk. You've got to put yourself in a risky place. You've got to put, and the most, people are always asking me, we've been very blessed to see a lot of healings happen in my meetings and stuff like that and trainings. And people are always asking, is in China, in Africa, in India, in Latin America, do they have more faith than we have? And I'm always like, they have more desperation, and desperation is key. But I remember in one of your films, you were like, it's not desperation alone, because there was somebody you were particularly wanting to see get healed and they weren't. Yeah. And you're like, so it's not just this, which was really good because it's true.
Yeah. It was actually a crusade, and somebody had brought their daughter had lockjaw and for years couldn't eat, had to drink out of a tube. And I just remember like all these Christians were around, and I'm like, it was for Furious Love. I think that's where I was filming it. And everybody was praying for, there's all these ministers, just tons of people, like 10, 15 people praying for healing. And I'm looking at this poor little girl, tears just streaming down her face. And I'm like, I got like mad.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I've
God,
been there.
It was like, God, how dare you not heal this little girl, right? Like it was just so visceral and emotional for me just to wrestle with, like, and I don't get it, man. I don't get how, like, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. But to me, that was it. Like, you can't get more desperate than a father who is bringing his daughter, who is just in agony every day, begging, snap your fingers and it's gone.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so, desperation is not all of it.
It's not.
There's a lot, and I think there's a lot going on in the spirit realm we forget about too, that we can't see.
And talking about that, there definitely is this place, and I mean, I know a lot of people won't hit these subjects. It's radical radio. We're hitting on the stuff other people are going to try to scare away from. And we're not going to try to rescue you from this, because this is the place we're walking away going, hey, Lord, why not? Yeah. You can do this. This is you raised your own self from the dead. I don't think this is hard, right? For you.
I've had moments where I'm like, am I more compassionate than God?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
I
like,
do.
like,
I felt that myself.
it's just,
I'm like,
it's a
why?
weird, it's a weird
Yeah.
feeling. And it's stuff I still wrestle with it to this day. But all I know is at the end of the day, you can go down some pretty funky rabbit
Right.
trails and wind up in a really dark, bad place. Cause I just have to go back to God is love, you know?
Yeah.
And, going back to what you were talking about, where it's like, he doesn't force himself on people and stuff, in the last chapter of my newest book, I talk about how, there's only two God ises in the Bible, where God specifically says God is this. He's like, it says God is light and God is love. And so then I went to the verse where was it 2 Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, 2, I can't remember, but where it's like, where it describes the attributes of love.
Yeah.
Right. Love is patient. Love is kind.
Yep.
We know all that. And,
13.
but so if God is love, then God is all of those things.
Right.
And one of them is love does not insist on its own way.
That's good.
And I'm like, okay, so, it really shifted things in me, because that's why I was always afraid of God growing up. Cause I believe that he only cared about getting his own way.
Mm.
And he was just using humanity to get his own way.
Yeah.
But then when I finally got that full revelation, it's like, no, that's not him at all. That's not love at all. Love does not make somebody do something they don't want to do.
Right.
And it just really shifted things for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Talking about that, with that, and this may be more on the warfare piece side of things, but what are some of the greatest obstacles in making the films, or, just in doing what you do that you've run across or that you've hit? Or
yeah,
things
I can
like
tell
that?
you some for this movie, for the God Man. Honestly, going to Rio de Janeiro I've never experienced warfare like that going into a shoot. And, I knew we were supposed to go, but it was funny. We had all the warfare on our side, and then we didn't realize until we landed that they were having tons of warfare on their side.
Wow.
And so it was like these two, like the Lord did not, or not the Lord, the devil did not want us to go there. But that's also where my daughter, Serenity, who you'll see in the movie, that's where she got her big breakthrough. And so on our side, she was having horrible nightmares, total dread about going. She was convinced she's going to get raped, she's going to get robbed, she's going to get killed, whatever. And she was begging me for 2 weeks, begging me, Dad, I can't go on this trip. You cannot, don't make me, And I'm like, sorry, kiddo. Like, tickets bought, and I can't hire anybody else. So you got to go. I'll keep you safe. Don't worry. So, she goes, and as soon as she hits the ground, and she says this in the movie, like her knees start to shake and she just starts to cry because she felt the presence of God. She knew that her life was going to change forever. So but that's her story. But like our story, Will Hacker, the DP for this movie, almost got arrested on the plane. Crazy. Was accused of being like a pedophile. It was the crazy dude. It was the craziest thing. So we're getting set to take off. And I was stuck in a middle seat because, you can't pick your flights in other countries. And so I was like, I'm just kind of stuck here. And so he saw that there's an open aisle seat, like 4 rows back. And so he kind of whips out his phone to take a picture, to text me like, hey, there's a seat back here. Maybe you can move to it. Right as he takes the picture, a little girl runs by. So there's a lady who sees this, and she thinks he's taking a picture of this little girl. Ooh. And she loses her mind. I mean, she wasn't even like the kid's mom. The kid's mom was there, and she's like, I don't have a problem with this. Like, what are you talking about?
Did she know the little girl? Didn't even know.
She total stranger. Wow. She's a total stranger. I mean, it was demonic. It was full demonic.
Oh, she was like the accuser of the brethren. She was
screaming. I mean, the pilots came out.
Good.
Everybody is just like and she's like, you are a sick person. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, you need to be arrested. Get off this plane. Like, she was just going nuts. And Will's just like, I was just trying to show my friend that there's an open seat. I'll delete here's the photo. Delete. It's gone. Don't worry. It was bananas. It was like 10 minutes of just like, I'm just like, are we going to get out of here? Or is this going to be an international incident? So finally, the lady finally calmed down and we took off. But so then we land. I tell them all these stories, the people that we were filming there. And he's like, man, wait till you hear what happened to us. So, in Rio, we were filming in the slums, and the area that we're filming in, it's all run by the mafia and the gang members. And so Marcus has a really good relationship with them just because, I mean, he's Marcus and he carries Jesus and like, he's like the most lovable person ever. So, but he's got a good relationship with them. And so he just kind of went to them, as I think it was about 10 days before, just as like a courtesy, like, hey, just so you know, we have some friends coming in. It's a film crew. They're making a movie about Jesus. Just, we just want to get your permission. And they go, absolutely not. They cannot film. If they film, we'll kill them. And he's like, what? What? Because what had happened is they just had a raid from the police, and they had all these cameras and stuff. So they were really freaked out, by cameras. They're like, there's no way these guys can film. And so he's like, oh my gosh, the plane tickets are bought. Like everything's happening. Like this is like a couple of days away. So he doesn't know what to do other than he's like, well, okay. Can I came all this way. Can I pray for you guys? Can I pray blessing? They're like, sure. So he prays for them. The Holy Spirit falls.
Come on.
So powerfully that by the end, when he said, like, these guys are like gang members crying. And then when they said, I don't know what this production is, but God is on it. These are the gang members. God is on it. They can film. Like he was like, I've seen some stuff. That
is amazing.
This was something, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I mean, we were not going to be able to film. And, but then, God gets his way.
He does. He does. He is Almighty God, and he shows it and displays it. That's crazy. So what were, so they're having that sort of warfare on that. Is there some of the trips or anything else where you felt like you hit some like strange, unusual warfare or something that was?
The only other time, the most frightened I've ever been in my life was we were filming Father of Lights, and we were in India with Ravi, and we were going to go see the witch doctor. This witch doctor he was well known in the entire country. He was a very, very powerful witch doctor.
Yeah.
And I remember the night before, I was so scared. I've been scared. This was like pure terror. I remember I woke up, it was almost like something was in my room.
Yeah.
And it was like 4:00 in the morning, and I'm just like, I don't think I can do this. Like I'm going to die. Right. And I've just never, exactly.
Yeah.
I've never, ever felt more dread. And because I remember they even told us like a couple of months before, part of the reason was, I guess, some missionaries had actually gone to try to like proselytize this guy. And he had basically like cursed them and like blew some like white powder or something at them. And 3 weeks later they died. Like they got super sick and they died. And like all these Christians, all the churches came around and were praying for healing, and like didn't work, and they just died. So I'm like, holy crap, dude! Like, what am I getting myself into? And so when I remember we went, and I was, even as we were walking to it, if you've seen Father of Lights, we actually filmed us walking, and it's a spooky like place, and it was just really dark. And I remember I was so scared, Robbie. I was so scared. And I remember we get there, and he's inside of his little hut, and I look in, and I remember to get the shot, I had to get on my knees, and so I was, because Robbie's standing at the doorway, and I get on my knees, and I'm looking around, and I look at the base of the house, and there's the white powder is all around the house. It was like his protector in it, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at this thing, it's like I'm 6 inches away from it, you know what I mean? Wow. I'm like, okay, well now it's a party, right? So I remember I'm trying to. It's so dark in his hut, and they're talking a different language. And I finally looked up at Ravi. I'm like, what's happening? And he's like, well, and I could see him on his bed. He's like wearing this like wife beater, and he's like just rocking back and forth. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? And Ravi said, well, he's not going to come out. He's terrified of us. And immediately when I heard that, it was like everything, all the fear was just instantly evaporated, because I knew that like, oh, God won. You know what I mean? And he was jacked up 2 hours before we even showed up, because what had happened is all of his powers had been stripped. That's why he was freaking out, because he had the demons that were kind of giving him the power. They all left.
Yeah.
And so he didn't know what was happening. He wound up just disappearing, kind of went nuts after that. But it's like, that was probably the closest I've ever come to just canceling something because
Wow.
I don't think I can do this.
Wow. You know, it's so crazy because I remember several times, but especially one particular time incident. One of them was what I just told you with getting the 9 prophetic words of you're going to die, if you go type of thing. But I also had several situations where that I got arrested in Russia, praying for this lady on the streets, and the police said, you can't do that. And I was like, all right, hey, meet me around the corner, Interestingly enough, it was talking about the Siberia part. It was before it was in St. Petersburg. It wasn't on that trip, but it was the trip where I had been at before, where I'd been in St. Petersburg before.
Gotcha.
And I got arrested and thrown in jail and everything. I always tell everybody, look, honest to goodness, I've only been arrested for the gospel. Like I've only been arrested and thrown in jail for the gospel, But I remember sitting in the jail cell, and I literally was thinking, I thought, man, if this must be God, or this wouldn't happen. And from that point on, something shifted in me to where that I was like, oh, if there's not warfare on it, if there's not opposition, I'm not sure I trust it. I'm almost questioning, Lord, is it you? But now when all this stuff is happening, all this opposition, all this warfare that's taking place, then I'm like, oh, yeah, right in the center of God's will.
Yeah.
Like right where I need to be. It's almost like I'm in the sweet spot of where God wants me. I know it sounds weird, and probably everybody listening, this sounds strange to you, but I've said it on here before. If there's not a warfare piece to it, me and my team are going, is this what the Lord wants us to do? It doesn't seem quite,
So have you ever prayed to just be hidden? Because that's what I would do. I was always just pray just to hide us.
I do, but it's almost like the warfare, and that God has multiple times. I mean, I literally, unfortunately, it's a country I can't name here, but it's literally listed as the second most dangerous country in the world. But I was literally running from the authorities. I was in this particular country pleading for the lives of 120 Afghans, asking them to please protect them. They were going to be killed. Already had several that had been killed. Wow. This is when the Taliban took over and everything, and literally running from the authorities, and they never caught me. Had letters show up at the hotel I was staying at. We're going to kill you, from the government.
Wow.
That's right. Well, I don't know for sure, but we had just met with a government official, and then all of a sudden they're chasing us. Wow. Literally had to fly out a full day earlier running from them. And it was, there's several other stories. Unfortunately, I can't tell here.
I think you maybe just mentioned the country, just so you know.
Huh?
I think you maybe just mentioned the country.
Did I really?
You might have to beep that out.
We'll see. My team is really good at taking care of those things. But all of a sudden, man, I'm like literally going, this is, but there was also this sense like I'm running in terror, but yet I knew this was the work of God.
Yeah.
This is, the Lord is on this. This is what, and I was praying the whole time, Lord, keep me hidden, keep me, unless me getting caught has something to bring you glory, because I'd already been arrested before, not at that particular country. I've never been arrested in that country, but literally like, Lord, unless you have something you want to do with this, then keep me completely hidden. Keep me, the underground church in China prays this thing they call a wall of fire. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I learned it from several of them, and I've tried it several times, where I can even be in public and be in a very visible place and not be detected. It's weird, even with cameras around and stuff. And there's been sadly too many times where I forgot to pray that in places where I was detected and got arrested, but have prayed that, Lord, I just pray a wall of fire to protect me and to shield me.
That's really interesting.
And it works.
I don't know if I've ever told you this. So when I was finishing filming my first movie, Finger of God, we were in Istanbul with Roland and Heidi Baker. That was like literally the last shoot. And I knew I was going home to like start putting this movie together. I had no idea. I had 100 hours of footage. I had no clue how to put this thing together. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to fit together. So I was a little freaked out. And so I was like, will you guys just pray for me? And so they put me on a little chair, and Heidi starts to pray, and she's just, a normal prayer, like, give him wisdom, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden she stops and she says, this is what the thus saith the Lord kind of thing. She's like, I will be a wall of fire around you. And I was like, it's so, ever since then, and I've gotten multiple words from people where it's like, they'll consistently bring up the God is a wall of fire around you when you go to film these things. And I'm like, it's interesting. I didn't realize that about
It's a thing in the underground church in China. I learned it from them.
Wow.
And it literally works.
Wow.
It literally works. And like, honestly, I know I wouldn't have made it. I know I wouldn't have made it out of, I had politicians in the country calling me going, you're not going to make it out alive.
Wow.
And it was just this, providential, just guarding and sheltering. It's interesting because when I've been in the out in the market where I'm evangelizing, I'm like, I don't want that wall of fire.
Right.
Because I want people to see the demonstration of the kingdom. I want them to see people getting healed. I want them to hear the gospel. So it's only been when I'm like trying to escape something or trying to be undetected, or if it's a believers gathering. All the stuff I've ever been arrested for has not been for believers gatherings, that have been a part of the underground church. It's been where we were out in the open, which you need to do. So at the same time, I'm telling people, be careful when you pray that prayer, because you may be actually shielding yourself away from something that God wants to be detected. And so it really interesting. But that's so cool that Heidi said that to you. And she probably, I don't know how much Heidi's done in China. I'm sure she's been there. She's been all over the world. But it's a very much a thing, especially with this particular group of churches in China. I've not heard from any others, and I've ministered there, I think, 3 different times. But this one particular, they pray this, and man, it works.
That's wild. Yes, I remember she prayed that, and then right after that, that's when she prophesied the next movie that I would make, Furious Loves. And because she kind of stopped herself, and then she got really kind of like, was acting kind of weird, because it was like she was seeing something very disturbing. And she said, she's like, man, I don't know how else to tell you what I'm seeing. I'm just going to tell you what I see. I just see you going into very, very dark places and like satanic stuff.
Yeah.
And you're going to be filming some in very, very dark places for your next film, but you're going to show the love of God in those dark places. And so that's really what gave me I didn't even put my movie together.
Right.
And like, I was nobody, I didn't think anybody was even going to see this film.
Yeah.
But it planted something in me for a sequel and it gave me permission when I really started heading down that road to do, because I always tell people, for that one, I was going to put God's love to the test. And I know you're not supposed to test God, but it felt like it gave me permission to do that, where I can just be like, God, I'm going to go to the darkest places. And I need to see I want to know if there's any boundaries, if there's any like limit to your love, because we're going to go to some dark people.
Yeah.
And of course, the darker it got, the brighter his light shone.
I remember that scene in the I guess it was a garbage dump thing too, where all the drug addicts were hanging out, and the guy's looking around for a used needle to shove in his arm
after he had just OD'd.
Yeah, they just revived him. And he's looking around again.
More.
Where do I get more?
Yeah,
I remember watching that part and just going, wow, because you really did in that movie. I mean, you're like, I remember when we went to the Psychic New Age Festival. Yeah. And it was even, I mean, it's so bizarre because when I think about it, and it's probably the same thing happened in the Salem part of it, which was I think it was a little bit more towards the beginning of the movie when you were in Salem.
In the middle.
That how the thing that really gripped me was, I've gone to like witchcraft type festivals type stuff before and gone there and felt like, not much is here. But there was an element that I felt there of witchcraft against us filming.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
you told me a story once that you overheard some people going to the person who was in charge of the whole thing and being like, you have to stop this.
Yes.
Right.
No, they did. I heard
he was like, I can't, I don't know why.
Right.
Like,
yeah. It was, I can't do that. And I can't. And there was, if you remember, there was a guy that kind of walked us in, and then there was a woman, an older woman, and they were talking amongst themselves. And the guy was kind of hostile about it. Matter of fact, he walked us out back to the cars, and he was still pretty hot. You gave him a copy of the movie. You said, "Here's my first movie, Finger of God." You know?
He was like, "I'll show you the finger of God."
And he was giving you the finger. You know, it was the craziest thing. But I remember all of this warfare. Yeah, and then the guru dude who was trying to like hypnotize me type of thing or something, who was weird. Controlling the woman that was manifesting like a snake.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like
people are listening to this right now, never seen that. Like,
if you haven't seen the movie, you gotta see it, because it really it even in the movie, we not telling all this piece of it, because it would have made it 2 hours versus an hour and a half. It would have made it too long. But you felt this. It's almost like you could feel this warfare out here, but it wasn't right up here where,
it's almost like
Chris O and his team and us were, we were in this protective bubble. And that's where I picked up on the wall of fire. Yeah. But in this, you had this realization, God's in hot pursuit of these people. And in the midst of their deception, in the midst of their satanic practices and all this stuff, because everything around us was witchcraft. Yeah. Everything was witchcraft there. And I just remember but that was an added layer to me, because I had experienced that a lot, in ministering in places in the hood, and being in physical danger of things like that. But then going into these extremely, demonic, very evil witchcraft type places, it was very intriguing to me, because it had a totally different, it shifted something for me of okay, we do have authority. All authority's been given to you. Yeah. All authority's been given to me, and I'm in you. Yeah. That piece really kind of came to, and it's something happened for me on that shoot, to where that I came away going, wow, I need to really up my game and what I give to the Lord, in this. It really did. Something happened to where I was like, okay, I need to take this up to another level. And I think that's what gave me, when I reflect on it, I know it helped give me that confidence to go back and go, let me appeal to these gang members, the Latin Kings, to do a sit down. Let me appeal to that. It wasn't even you being a part of it or you guys filming it. It was just, because, of everything that was going on, of just realizing, okay, I can sort of push this. Yeah. And I mean, God does say in Malachi, put me to the test, test me in this, and see if I'm not that, I know I think it's a different form of testing. I'm thinking he's saying, hey, prove the authority that I've given you, use it, wear it out, work it, and I think he's giving us an invitation to do that. And so, I do believe there's a grace for that. But this, with the God man, dude, it really, I can't watch it and not cry. Literally, I can't watch it and not. And I'm even going, why am I tearing up? Why am I? I've seen this already. But it has that impact, and so it's really for everybody watching. It's got to be experienced. You got to see it. You got to go to it. You got to get it. And when I say go get it, it's literally this Tuesday, coming out this Tuesday.
Yeah, June 6th.
And so June 6th, hit it. And the website again,
you can go to fathomevents.com, and then you'll just search for the God Man. Search for the God Man, and you can just type in your zip code, and it'll show you
the theaters that are out around you, and invite people. Like I said, invite people, buy tickets, hand them out. God's gonna direct you in doing that, but it's so good. And I really think let me back away from the words I think. I know that your first movie, Finger of God, shocked you, what the Lord did with it. I'm telling you now, this one's going to shock you, what the Lord's going to do with it, Darren. This one's going to shock you. God's got something planned that he's not showing you yet, that's going to come out, and it's going to shock you. And as many millions of people were impacted by the first one, there's going to be many millions that are going to be impacted by this one. And I'm telling you right now that I just know in my spirit and throw it out. And,
that's awesome.
I know it. And I know it's just the presence of God is resting on this. There's just an anointing that's on it. That's purely God. And nobody's trying to get attention in this film.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about it, because I've always known that's been you, that's been your heart.
Right.
And so it's just so much more of that.
Yeah. What's funny, I don't think I've mentioned this too. So for me, my heart has always been with the movies. Because I film so much with my friends, with like you guys. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's my great joy to like show the world my friends.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you guys have so much that you're bringing to the body of Christ. And it's like, I definitely don't want the attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, I love being able to like push my friends out there. Like, look how cool these guys are. And look at all the amazing things that they're doing with God. But with this one, it was weird. It was almost like I took the opposite approach, where I wanted to just film with my friends, but it wasn't about, I can't wait for the world to see them. It was, I can't wait for the world to see Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Because he'd become, over 15 years, he'd become my best friend.
Ooh.
And I just want the world to see my best friend what he's really like and who he really is. And I think that's what you're reacting to, what audiences seem to be really reacting to is, boy, you see Jesus in this film.
Wow.
And it's like, I just think so much. And I think this is partly why I make my movies, is like, we just get numb to stuff.
Yes, so true.
You know what I mean? Especially like with the church and with, Christianity and stuff. It's like, you hear it over and over and over again. I mean, like, I read the Bible and it's like, man, I've read this story like 100 times and it just sometimes they don't have the impact anymore or something, you know what I mean? And then you see it shifts and your life shifts or something. Now that all of a sudden the word is alive again. Right. But like, I just feel like with this one, I think a lot of Christians, a lot of people, you're going to have one side that doesn't know Jesus at all. Mm-hmm. And my prayer is that they'll watch this and be like, well, if this is who Jesus is, I'm in.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And we even say kind of in the marketing, it's like, I want people to know like Jesus is not church.
Yeah.
Jesus is not religion. You know what I mean? He's the Son of God.
Yeah.
Right. And, but I also think for Christians, it's like, you've heard Jesus, you see crosses everywhere. It's just like, Jesus loves you, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Okay. Like you've kind of grown. I think it's really easy for us to kind of grow stale, and
so true.
And so my hope with this, and I think what people are responding to is they're seeing Jesus and being reminded of who he really is.
Man, so powerful. You got to go see it. And you got to get other people to see it because it's just so good. Darren, thanks for coming. Thanks for being a part of this.
Dude, this is awesome.
Dude, you really are you're very much a radical guy. And, and people who, and I know so much of it is your journey with Jesus because he's the radicalist one of all of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's made us this way.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for your friendship. I mean, you've been a friend through some of my darkest times of my life. No, not some, my darkest times of my life. And I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, buddy.
And for everybody who, again, please don't hesitate. Go to that site right now. Get the tickets. Tuesday, June 6th. You don't want to miss it. And you definitely want to share it. And for us here at Radical Radio, as always, we're going to tell you, stay radical and even get a little bit more radical. Don't play it on the safe side. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.
This week's podcast is brought to you by Robby Dawkins Ministries. Do you know someone who would be impacted by today's episode? Share it with them and let us know what they think. Subscribe or follow this podcast so you don't miss our next episode. You can also leave us a review, comment, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until next time, Stay radical.